What people mostly get wrong about personal branding is they confuse it with oversharing. One of the things that I always tell myself is make a decision and make it right. You will never know if you make a right decision. You will never know if that thing was the right move or that, idea was the right one to pursue. 3 months, 3 or 4 months into doing that, alongside my 9 to 5, I was fired.
Welcome to Kasa Connect. Together we're exploring the journeys of entrepreneurs, creatives and change makers shaping the future.
Today's guest has helped many businesses and individuals go from invisible to in demand. She's helped hundreds of business owners show up more confidently and strategically in order to meet their business goals. I'm so excited to present to you Bethany, founder of Orchid Marketing, on today's episode of Kasa Connect.
So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's connect.
What we do at Orchid is we are a marketing and personal branding agency. What does that mean? Essentially, I help you talk about your business and talk about yourself in a way that benefit each other. So when people like you as a person, when people can remember what you do as a person and your skills and your knowledge and your expertise, that then makes you more memorable and makes people want to work with you specifically. So that's how essentially we work with our clients to help them communicate what makes them different, what makes them them, and also showing their personality and communicating their story in a way that opens up doors for them and also helps make their business more successful as well.
I fully agree with that, and it's so important to think about your personal brand and how you present yourself. There are lots of resources out there, like books and YouTube videos that teach you this. So what makes your workshop different, and why do so many people come to you to support them?
Yeah, our workshops are different because they exist to be actionable. In reality, if you come to a workshop of mine, I'm probably speaking for about 40% of it. And the other 60% is you working with people and you actually taking action towards building a personal brand and helping you see how your personal brand contributes to your overall marketing of your business. What I really love to help people with is making things really simple, is making things really actionable, really practical. And you can get that through a video, but having that accountability and having that strategy that you would get out of a workshop with me or through my new coaching program that I'm about to launch soon, you'll see that when you have someone there that can be that person that's like, okay, you said that you were going to do this and you haven't yet, what's stopping you? And working together to dismantle those beliefs and those ideas and what's holding you back. That is the main benefit of working with us, either going to a workshop or joining the program. With the coaching program, it's a lot more intensive. It's 12 sessions over 6 months. And what we do is we look at 3 sort of key pillars. So we look at the strategy of both your business's marketing, your personal brand strategy, and then how they work together and where those overlap. Then we spend the majority of the coaching program actually implementing and saying, okay, this is what we said was important in your strategy. How are we going to then communicate that to open up those doors? And especially one of the things that I really love is public speaking and helping people sort of become more confident speaking more publicly, getting on podcasts, speaking at events and things. I think being able to impact people with your voice and with your ideas is so, so powerful. And so the sort of main part of the program will help you do that and also grow your business at the same time. And then the final part is helping you maintain that momentum. So how you can continue to go after those opportunities, put yourself in front of these people that can open those doors for you as we phase out of the coaching program.
How did your entrepreneurial journey begin?
So my journey began while I was working in corporate, while I was still working my 9 to 5. I was working in marketing, working in advertising, but in a marketing role. And I never really thought that I would ever become a business owner. It just wasn't really something on my radar. But I've always been very ambitious. So I always knew that whatever I was doing, whether it was my 9 to 5, whether it was a project I did outside of work, inside of work, I was going to give it my all and do my very best. And what happens when you're very ambitious in a 9 to 5 role is that even though you can be recognized, even though your hard work, doesn't go unnoticed, you still don't have as much control over your career and essentially your life, because you work so much. You spend so much of your life working that I was sort of like, I don't know if the things that I'm unhappy with in this 9 to 5 I'm going to be able to get out of or really escape from, or find different in another job. So I decided that I was going to think about some other opportunities, think about other ways that I can sort of have that control but still do things that I really enjoy. And it was sort of one night where my boyfriend was like, maybe you should go freelance or try freelancing, or look into starting a business. And basically, I think a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs can understand this, that when that seed is planted in your mind of starting a business or becoming an entrepreneur, you can't really, get that out of your mind. And so one thing led to another. I started freelancing, decided that I wanted to turn this into an agency, make it bigger than just me. And then about 3 or 4 months into doing that, alongside my 9 to 5, I was fired.
Okay.
The company I was working for found out about my business, and unfortunately, they weren't very happy.
So after you got fired, you committed to full-time focusing on your business.
Yeah.
You never thought about, applying to another company.
I think once we realised that the income I was making from my business and also the income that my partner was making, because I live with my boyfriend, would be enough to pay our bills and still not have to completely uproot our lives, I think that's when we both made the decision for me to take this full time and for me to not look for another job. And I think that's really important, that at the beginning the support that you get from the people that really matter are going to be the difference between whether or not you actually make it and find success in your business. So I think finding that support system, not just financially, but also with their time and with their ears and listening to you and being that sort of sounding board and helping you see the bigger picture of why you're doing things. That was really, really helpful.
Assuming you design and run the workshops yourself, you market them yourself, you do all the financials for them, you do the negotiation, you reach out to find the clients, you basically are running it all yourself.
Yeah, right? I'm a solopreneur myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
How are you finding that?
Oh, gosh. I think, as I mentioned earlier, every single day is different, and which is exciting and also really scary. And I personally, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing today? What is actually on my to-do list? And then some days I really feel in it. I really feel like I'm in a flow and I know exactly what I'm doing. And I think, in general, it's balancing both of those feelings and trying not to lean too much into one side or the other, because I think if you are constantly putting yourself down or constantly comparing yourself to yourself, not just to other people, it's a very slippery slope. So on the one hand, it's very fun, and at the same time, having that much control over what you do every single day, and the money that comes into your bank account every month, is it's definitely a roller coaster of emotions. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's really worth it.
I see that you're super passionate about it, and I also see that you are confident in what you're delivering. I want to know where you get your confidence from, because that's actually something I sometimes struggle with.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm making a lot of decisions at Kasa and also with Kasa Connect, right? And I do doubt myself a lot. And I mean, I try to fake it, because sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. I do kind of show up so confidently. So when I tell people that I'm actually feeling like not confident about certain things, are like, wow, you look confident. I'm like, I'm doubting myself in my head all the time sometimes with decisions. So I want to know how you convince yourself, well, not convince yourself, but where you get your confidence from.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really important point there of sometimes all you can do is look confident.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with doubting yourself. All that really tells me is that you care a lot about the success of your business and where you see your business going. And one of the things that I always tell myself is make a decision and make it right. You will never know if you make a right decision. You will never know if that thing was the right move or that, idea was the right one to pursue. All you can do is say, okay, these are the lessons that I learned. What am I going to do differently because of that? And that, I think, also contributes to your confidence, because really all confidence is looking back at all of these decisions you've made, all of these choices you've made, looking back at everything that you've done in your life and say, okay, I have been able to successfully achieve X, Y, and Z, and because of that, I trust myself. And I trust that whatever comes out of this decision is going to be the right one, because I'll make it right and I'll do everything I can to make it work.
And are you able to separate your business from yourself? Because I mean, obviously you are the business essentially. And I remember, even though I have a physical business, the cafe, I still was so intertwined with the business. Like, for example, if one day I'd mess up a customer's order, I'd go home and think about it. I can't believe I got the wrong order and I messed this up. And I was not really able to separate in the beginning. It took me some time to just, you leave the business as the business and go home and think about something else.
Yeah, I think you answered it there of it takes time sometimes, and having grace for yourself as well is really important, because you are doing life for the first time. You are doing business for the first time. You are not going to know before you do something whether or not it's going to happen in the way that you want it to. You just have to go through the motions and do everything to the best of your abilities. And I think it's also looking at it from the other person's perspective. So say you messed up a customer's order. As long as you did everything you could to rectify that mistake and make it better and, do everything you could to make them feel seen and valued and like, okay, yes, I did make a mistake, but here's how I'm going to make it up to you. That's all you can do. And at the end of the day, if that happened to me as the customer, I would think, well, they really went above and beyond and they really did such a good job of turning that negative into a positive. And I would never, as the customer, go home and think negatively of you. I would only think about the positive outcome. And actually in psychology, that is a very common, well-known sort of idea of you remember the final action or the final emotion or final thing that happens. So if you say you make a mistake, but you do everything you can to make it better, that person or the person that received your mistake, all they're going to remember is how much effort you went into making it better. And so I know obviously it's easier said than done to not take it so personally, but for me that's really helped with seeing it from their perspective and being like, I did everything I could. And if they're still unhappy, I know that I did my best and that's all that I can ask of myself as well.
I love your mindset. It's so optimistic and so positive, and I think that's really important when you are in this business, right? Because it's really, there are ups and downs every single day, and you just need to look at the lights and commit to the journey and then keep going up, right? I love that you have such a positive and optimistic mindset. And I know, like every entrepreneur, you must have gone through ups and downs in your journey. What's been the biggest challenge for you?
I would say the biggest challenge has been getting out of my own way. have been a lot of things that I avoided, especially at the beginning, because I had ego, because I felt like I had seen other people do the same things as me. And so I don't want to say felt entitled, but I think I felt like if I'm doing the same things as all of these other successful people, then I'll find the same success. And actually, one of the biggest challenges was actually getting out of my own way and recognizing that what I was doing was not working. And I needed to change. I needed to do things differently. And that is a really, really hard thing to come to terms with, because especially if things have been working out okay and you're sort of like, then you battle with don't fix what's not broken. But if you're not seeing the results that you want and you know you haven't yet tried everything, that's really where I was at of I need to figure out what kind of going back to the drawing board and being like, okay, I know I have these skills, I know that I can monetize these skills, but also I don't know how to get from point A to point B. And so getting out of my own way and recognizing that was a real big challenge. And that happened for me towards the end of last year in December, where I decided that I was going to focus solely on public speaking and workshops and mainly also position myself as a personal branding expert. Now I've gone back to marketing and sort of this like ongoing coaching program, also because that's what people have asked me for. And so getting out of my own way was the first step, but also recognizing that I had an idea of what I wanted my business to look like, but that was not what the market wanted from me. That was not actually what people wanted from me, and that was not what my business should look like. So that was probably the biggest challenge of getting over that in my mind and not giving into sunk cost or like I've put in all of this effort, put in all of this time. I just need to make this work. Actually, no, taking a step back and being like, okay, this isn't working in the way that I want it to, or it's not working anymore. I need to do something different. So that's probably the biggest challenge.
That makes sense. And you also briefly mentioned that people doing the same thing as you. And I know copycats in business has been a massive thing. I mean, the Dubai Fixed Chocolate, they're facing a lot of copycats. You know, the one I'm talking about, the pistachio fixed chocolate. And I know that the founder of that is obviously getting a bit upset because it's, you know, she created that product, took her time and effort, and now there's just so many replicas of it. So what do you feel about copycats in the industry? Is it just something you have to embrace and just try and be better? Or do you feel like, you know, it's important to take action, like sue and all those kind of other steps that some people are taking?
Yeah. Well, I think it depends to the level of, you know, how someone has copied you. I know, for example, for a lot of like apparel clothing companies, if they have like a patent on their design or something, then I think that's more than enough reason to say, you know, maybe you shouldn't be doing that, maybe you shouldn't be copying my designs.
But for that something that you're doing, like essentially providing a marketing workshop and then you deliver it and then someone attends it and then does the same workshop, how do you deal with that?
I've actually been copied before.
I know, that's why I remember you mentioning that's why.
So this was back when I was mainly doing marketing services, and a company that had asked me to pitch to them to work with them actually then stole my whole services and pitched it as their own. And when I had come across their content promoting their new services, which were actually mine, I was very confused. I was very shocked, surprised, definitely. But also I found it very amusing because by the time that they had copied my services, I had actually already evolved the business and had moved on from the services that they had copied. And so when it comes to copying, you cannot stop people from doing it. All you can do is think, okay, clearly I have something good going on here, but also I'm the originator of these ideas. I'm the originator of these services or this product that they're copying. So I can come up with something better. I can come up with something that's even more valuable and going to be even more successful. And so you're always going to be one step ahead, not even one step ahead, but 10 steps ahead, because you have much more information than they do.
Yeah.
You have much more knowledge than they do. And ultimately, as I said, you can't stop people from copying.
And
but
it's flattery, you know,
it is
at the end of the day.
flattery.
I remember actually one of my customers in another country is building another cafe,
Right.
and the interiors are the same. He showed it to me and we just laughed about it because we both knew, oh wow, this is very Kasa inspired. But like you said, it's flattery. So what do you think most people get wrong about personal branding?
What people mostly get wrong about personal branding is they confuse it with oversharing. They think that you need to tell everyone your deepest, darkest secrets, you know, your most traumatic moments and what you had for breakfast, lunch, and dinner to connect with people. But that's not true. The way that I see connection and the way that I see, you know, personal branding in general is being strategic and selective with what you share so that people can start to create associations with you. So this might be a good time to break down what I think personal branding actually means. So the personal side of personal branding is obviously about you, but it's about your personality, your values, what you care about, and of course your knowledge and expertise as well that goes into it. It's essentially, you know, what makes you you. And then the branding part is the associations that you want people to have of you, how you want people to see you, and how you want to be remembered in people's minds. So when you put those two ideas together, it's just how can you talk about yourself, your personality, your values, what you're good at, and make it memorable for other people so that when they need someone who's really good at what you do, they put two and two together and then offer that opportunity to you. So the reason why I say you don't need to share your deepest, darkest secrets is because unless that is related to what you're good at, or you know, your values and your personality, or at least things that you think will help people remember you for the right reasons, you don't need to tell people.
I fully agree with you, and this is something I'm actually learning to do because I'm such a yapper, and sometimes I overshare and I go home and I'm like, this ruins my personal brand. Why did I just say that? I mean, there are pros and cons. Like sometimes you do feel like being very vulnerable helps build connections. But I get what you mean because there's a lot of times I regret saying things that I've said. So this is actually something that I'm learning on a daily to do better.
And I think it's that idea of being selective, right? So I've been in rooms and very like intimate conversations with people where they have been a bit more vulnerable and opened up about maybe something that was more of a traumatic moment or experience in their life, but that's not something that they would ever share online because it's not really relevant to, again, what they want to be remembered for, what they want to be known for. And so it's that idea of being selective. So, you know, we're friends, so I might confide in you in something that's maybe a bit more personal that I wouldn't share online to people that I don't know.
Do you ever feel pressure to always be your best self, though, when you think about personal branding and always trying to put your best foot forward and your best brand forward? Does that come across?
Yeah, I definitely think that can also be a challenge at times. This is something that I am even struggling with. Like, listen, people come to me for help with personal branding, but that does not mean I'm perfect either. And there are still things that I am working through myself. So, you know, like I love a blowout, as you can see. I love doing my makeup. I love, you know, like I like to come across on camera as this more like polished, professional looking persona. But actually, I've realized that that's not who I am. And there is a time and place for being very, very professional. I mean, you know, more of that sort of I'm here to teach you sort of thing. But at the same time, I'm also very goofy. I'm very silly. You know, I'm mostly very unserious. And that is something that I am working towards showing more as well in my content and in conversations with people. And so it's a constant process of getting comfortable with being yourself. Which...
But I completely understand what you mean, because this morning when I was in like my big glasses, because I actually wear glasses, and I had like all my frizzy hair and my pajamas, my mum made a joke saying, "Oh, I should take a picture of you now and we should put that on your podcast." So I do get what you mean by having kind of different personalities and different kind of images for each setting, just because, you do need to inspire the confidence in people that, Yes, I also wanted to talk to you about whether, you've always been this confident throughout your childhood, or, have you ever had any fears of public speaking? Is this something you've developed over time, this personality and this aura of kind of confidence, and just someone who's got it together? Because that's what you come across to me as, and so I would literally put you in the category of being kind of a role model in that sense.
Wow. I do not take that lightly. Thank you so much. It's funny because when I was a young child, my dad always likes to tell this story of how he was in a supermarket one day doing some shopping, and I had somehow gone away from him and basically corralled all of the other little kids in this store and was like, right, let's go. I don't even know where we were going, but he was like, you were so bossy as a kid, which I think he means in a nice way, but obviously there are kind of negative connotations with that. I think
that's where your teacherness comes from, right? You see,
I'll take it. And I think like as I grew up and started to, I guess, start receiving certain messages of how women should be and how women should act, and especially as a woman of colour, a bisexual woman of colour at that, there have been lots of times where I've been an outsider and someone that maybe wasn't accepted. And even now when I talk about things like my sexuality and my background, I always get this like twinge of it's a little bit uncomfortable. But I guess the reason why I say that is because even as an outsider, even as someone that maybe wasn't really able to find their people for a long time, which definitely affected my confidence, especially growing up, that doesn't mean that there aren't people that can connect with you. That doesn't mean that there aren't people that are going to relate. And I think part of my confidence building journey was going out and finding those people that accept me for me and don't want me to change and love all of me, even the bad parts, even the bossy parts, the sort of negative sides that we all have. And so part of my confidence building journey has been that. But also, I am the kind of person, as I mentioned, I was very ambitious at the beginning of this podcast. I've always been the kind of person that when I put my mind to something, I just make it work. And yes, there is a lot of getting out of my own way and having to remind myself of times where I've done that and succeeded. But also, as time goes on, the time delay between when I want to do something and when I actually do it gets shorter and shorter and shorter. Even if I have those doubts, even if I'm like, I have no idea if I'm the right person to do this, if I have the authority to say this, if I'm an expert even. But the more that you do something, especially when you feel nervous about it or uncomfortable about it, the less uncomfortable and nervous you feel. So the mindset that I like to have is, if you know the first time is going to be the worst, and by the 100th time it's going to be second nature, why would you not want to get to 100 as quickly as possible? So
I love that.
That's the kind of mindset that I have, and I think, again, as part of my confidence building journey, that's kind of also the mindset that I've had.
Well, now you have reached expert level. You feel it. I can see it. Can you share some of the clients you've worked with and some of the exciting workshops you've done?
Yeah. The workshops have been really, really varied. I've done them for people working in the property sector. I've done them for business owners, small business owners, big business owners. It's been really, really varied. And I would say the common transformation, or the common result that people typically get from my workshops, is really getting out of their own way and recognizing that they have a personal brand, whether they realize it or not. That's one of the big messages. I would say there's probably 2 key messages that I have in my workshop of you have a personal brand, whether you realize it or not, because everything that you do, everything you say, every interaction you have is adding layers to your personal brand. And that's because, and this is the second sort of major message I have, is your personal brand is not necessarily about how you see yourself. It's how you want to be seen by other people. And so when you really acknowledge that and you start to see, okay, I haven't been showing up in the way that I want to be seen, you can't help but take action. So with these 2 ideas in mind, something that I've loved is when people say they felt inspired, they felt motivated to take action, they've actually wanted to take those steps forward. And then with the coaching program, it's still in its early days, and I've been doing some testing with a couple different clients, but one client that I've been working with in particular, she's a coach, and she's seen
she's a fitness coach or
she's a sort of like a life coach in that sort of in that sort of industry. But she's seen such amazing growth, not just in the amount of people that she's been able to reach through her content, but also in herself, and recognizing that again she has that personal brand.
Wow, look at you supporting a life coach, you know, someone who helps other people get their lives together, and you're supporting them.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I think, again, it's that idea of like, if you know yourself really well and your business, which for a lot of, especially service providers, is the thing that they actually offer is based on their lived experiences. When you know yourself really well and when you know your story really well and how that relates to what you offer and what you do for your own customers, you can't help but feel like ready to put yourself out there and ready to talk about your business to whoever will listen, basically. And I think as well, what people tend to be really good at when they come to me is they'll be like, I can talk about my business for ages and I can be very factual and I can be very logical about it. When it comes to my why and why I'm the right person for, to work with this client or to work with this business or to open this business, that's where people tend to really struggle. And so actually, when you're unapologetic about that, about the why, about why you, about what makes you different, you can't help but, again, want to kind of put yourself out there and then go after the things that would be amazing, game-changing opportunities.
I'm gonna go home because I think writing down and knowing your why, like you said, is super important, and then just being unapologetic about it.
Absolutely.
What makes you, and even if someone copies your business, they're not you, so they can't do it exactly how you do it. So I love that. Obviously your main resource is your time, right? How do you plan to grow the business? Because time is a limited resource. So what's it looking like for you?
This is a great question. At the moment, most of my time is spent on finishing out the coaching program and starting to promote that. So what that looks like for all of my content, really, it starts out with, what do I want the end goal, or what do I want the sort of like end message to be for people, and how can I work backwards to make that a reality? So one of the ways that I'm promoting my coaching program, for example, is I'm basically taking the ideas of the coaching program and turning them into a series. So for example, it might be how I might grow a cafe. How I might market your business and build your personal brand at the same time to make your cafe business more successful. So that's an idea for what I have. And then obviously the end goal of that piece of content is people are interested in what I'm saying and might want to work with me. So the content is a really big part of marketing my business and growing my business. Another thing, and this is kind of related to what I was saying earlier of getting out of my own way, is pitching and putting myself forward for opportunities. A lot of the success that I have seen in my business, especially in the last few months, has been from pitching myself, cold emailing people, which is really hard to do, especially at the beginning when you are kind of Like, oh God, am I annoying people? That's been a really, really big driver for the business. And so I think my next moves going forward is just to do more of what's working, and then also leaving time where I can and space to see what other things might work.
That was going to be my next question. How do you actually acquire customers? So obviously you do the emailing, the cold emailing, and I'm sure like Instagram and LinkedIn as well, and attending lots of networking events. Is there anything else you would recommend doing to acquire more customers, acquire people, like what you do and what you recommend?
I mean, I think you kind of really just said it there. Like online, putting yourself out there, making sure that you're really clear on what you do, why you do it, and who you do it for. So there's really like sort of a few questions that I always try and make sure that I can answer very clearly, and that I also have my clients try and answer very clearly, is what do you do? What problems do you solve? Who do you solve these problems for? And is it clear from your content, from the way that you speak about yourself, from your even just the introduction of yourself? Is it clear from those things an answer to all of the above? And so if you can't answer that confidently, then you kind of need to go back to the drawing board again and be like, okay, I need to make sure that these are very clear, because if I'm not clear on these things, how can anyone else be? So that's the content side of things. And that's
your dream collaborations and partnerships.
I think what I would love is to partner with these really great organizations that bring amazing women together. So, for example, Albright, Stap World's really amazing. These communities that really facilitate networking and bringing women together that are super motivated to be the best versions of themselves.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Do you mainly work with women? I forgot to ask you this.
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Makes sense.
Yeah. So, as I mainly work with women, being in these spaces, like for me personally as a woman, it's just an amazing energy. But at the same time, of course, I have to be strategic. I have to think about my business and the growth of my business. And so
what makes Kasa Connect very unique is that we're filming in a cafe. So I have to ask you, what's your go-to order?
I love an iced vanilla matcha latte. That's like my comfort drink, and I'm also not very picky. Like, as long as it kind of tastes like matcha, as long as it kind of tastes like vanilla, I'm okay. But recently I had a Muscovado iced latte, I think that's how you say it, from Gales. That was insane. So shout out Gales.
Nice.
And
not tried that one yet.
No, it's really good. And from Kasa, drink that I love is the cinnamon and
so you had the cinnamon and brown sugar latte. Okay.
That was so delicious. So if you're ever at Kasa, you need to get that one.
Oh, thank you for that little plug. And the other thing about this podcast is, of course, it's all about connection. So how can our audience get connected with you? I know we already got this workshop happening at Kasa, so stay tuned for more details. But what's the best way for them to reach you? And also, what would you like from the audience in terms of support?
Yeah. I would love it if you could follow me and DM me with anything that really stood out to you that I said in this podcast, or any questions that you have for me, anything that you want me to kind of expand on Instagram, TikTok, or LinkedIn. You can follow me on all three, or just whichever your preferred platform is. So for Instagram and TikTok, it's orchidmarketing.co. So that's ORCHID marketing.co. And then on LinkedIn, it's a little bit funny, but if you just type in Beth Orchid, I will probably come up. But yes, I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for your support.
Okay, we're going to have to put this in, but what's the best piece of advice that you regret not taking?
Ooh. It's the best piece of advice I regret not taking.
If there's none, you can just say there's none.
I think again this kind of touches on something that I said earlier of like, if I'm doing all the things that other people who look successful are doing, then I must be successful, right?
Yeah.
But actually, it was only when I took a step back and realized that that probably isn't the whole picture. They're probably only showing you the highlights. And also, a lesson that I've had to learn the hard way recently is just because it's someone else's experience doesn't mean it's going to be yours.
Yeah.
Like that you might have to be the person that knocks on every door and tries every single thing and has to be, 100% all the time to make it work. And so I think probably not following or not listening to that after some time of recognizing that this isn't sending me in the right direction of where I want my business to go, ended up being the thing that has grown my business now. So yeah, I basically don't listen to everything you see on Instagram.
Great advice. And I think we all needed that. And lastly, if you weren't doing Orchid Marketing, what do you think you'd be doing?
I think I'd still be working in marketing.
Okay.
I love it. I love being able to communicate and bring people together and help people. I think ultimately that's what marketing is, right? It's you have something that could help someone and you are putting that in front of the person that it could help. And so I think I'd still be working in marketing. Whether or not I'd still be working for myself, I think at this point, I would hope so. But yeah, I think I'd still be working in some kind of marketing capacity.
What percentage of selling a product goes down to the actual product itself, and what percentage do you think goes down to the marketing? I know it varies from brand to brand, but if you could give me a rough number. This is a question I've always wondered about.
It's hard to say a rough number. I think marketing is more important than product.
So you would give it
and I'd probably say it's about 60-40. The reason why is because, as I said, marketing is putting your thing in front of the right person for the right reasons and making them make the decision to purchase from you. When your product is kind of rubbish, really all that happens is the person who's purchased your product is going to be like, this was shit. I'm going to talk shit about it, or I'm never going to recommend it, or I'm going to tell everyone to stay away from your business. But if your product is really good, then that also helps your marketing. So it all kind of works together as a cycle of your marketing puts it in front of the right person. That right person purchases from you, that person has a good experience with your product. It then helps again with the facilitation of your marketing because they're going to tell their friends, they're going to tell people about it, they're going to recommend it to other people, and it sort of works as a circle. So for me personally, I know it's a very contested opinion, but for me personally, I think marketing's more important.
No, I completely agree, because at the end of the day, you can have an amazing product, but unless you are convincing people that it's amazing, they're not even going to try it in the first go, right? And marketing helps you kind of get that initial traction. Thank you so much, Beth. This has been a really valuable experience, and I hope everyone's learned something from it like I have. And honestly, I think speaking to you just makes me feel more uplifted and positive, because you have such a great mindset.